Jonathan W. Emord is a constitutional law attorney and author of The Authoritarians, which almost sounds like a cool band name until you realize the reality of what he's discussing. He joins me now to discuss all the ramifications of these crazy vaccine mandate policies, and really, I'm sure we're going to see some litigation to come. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us. Really good to see you. Where to start? There's a million questions because, and you had a great piece, I have to say. You have a great piece in Town Hall where you were getting into whether it was Fifth Amendment protections. You were also talking about Jacobson v. Massachusetts. And now we hear today that the fines could be for companies that are not mandating vaccine or who are not requiring employees to be vaccinated, anywhere from like $70,000 to $700,000, depending on the severity and I guess repetition of the insubordination, for the lack of a better way to put it. What legal challenges is this administration going to be facing by doing this to these businesses? I don't know that I've ever seen the federal government require businesses to do anything like this before.
Well, we, for example, have had probably over a dozen calls from different companies and individuals who wish to contest this, and I understand that there's likely to be hundreds of lawsuits. This may have the largest number of lawsuits filed against any federal action in American history. It really does appear that an overwhelming number of suits will be filed by employees, employers, and by the states. Some 14 states are likely to sue. So they're just all waiting for the issuance of this order by OSHA, and it's fraught with enormous problems, constitutional and statutory problems that are likely to cause this thing to end up, rather than being a brick wall, it'll be more like Swiss cheese by the time it's over.
Yeah, and one of those big issues that you brought up were those individuals that had already had coronavirus. They have natural immunity, and yet that's not being factored into this equation. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, if you take, there are many legal challenges that are constitutional and statutory, but even if you assume that the administration has the power to do this in the first instance, which I doubt, under Section 6C1 of the OSHA Act, they have to establish two things which they simply cannot do under the precedent. First is they have to establish a grave danger is presented in the workplace by employees who are not vaccinated to employees who are. The problem with that is, as you're pointing out, clearly those with natural immunity don't pose a grave danger to those who are vaccinated. Clearly those who are working from home remotely don't pose a grave danger to anybody. People working outside don't pose a grave danger to anybody. And people who are working, truck drivers and so forth, who work alone are not posing a grave danger to anybody. So of the 100 million people affected by this, a good number of people cannot be established to pose a grave danger. And then in addition, the government has to establish that this emergency temporary standard they're adopting through OSHA is necessary to protect employees from a grave danger. And that clearly, under the precedent, it means that if there's an alternative that would suffice just as well, the government hasn't established the necessity of the move. And there are numerous things employers can do to limit risks to other employees. And then you've got this ambient fact throughout the entire workforce, which is most of the people in the workforce are under 65 and are healthy and are simply not likely to get severe disease. And the courts have defined grave danger to be a lethal threat. So I don't believe they meet the standard. And I should point out that of the the last six instances in which OSHA has invoked this emergency temporary standard, the courts have struck it down in 4 instances and have held it only partially applicable in 1 other. So it doesn't have a good track record, and it really looks vulnerable.